Quite often I get to thinking how as kids we got by. Like at Christmas time at our house, we couldn't even afford a fire. But we made do with what we had back then when I was young. Dad used to suck a peppermint and we'd all sit around his tongue.
It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. And this video is all about advent calendars, especially beer ones, and my sort of feedback to you guys, dear viewer, about the 2 advent calendar boxes that I had earlier on in December. We're getting towards the end of December now, and I wanted to do this video before 2023 because yeah, this is all about 2022. So I'm probably going to be looking over here because that's where my screen is, and I can see I've created an XLS, a spreadsheet, if you would. And we'll have a look at both calendars, and we'll see what we get. So, if you remember, we did the Beer52 calendar and the Beer Company Advent calendar, and the Beer52 one at normal prices was a lot cheaper. It was basically half the price. So the Beer52 one, I paid £65 for that, and I had to register early to get that price, but that's what I paid. And the Beer Company one retailed at £130, double the price. It absolutely blows my mind. That is more or less the most expensive one, apart from one that was about £180 but came with some very, very special, like unbelievably special beers. 130 quid. No. And put it this way, I did not pay that amount. I got a substantial discount because I ordered late, and they were crapping themselves, and they were like, oh, we're trying to get rid of this box. And I believe that I also paid £65. So basically, I paid the same amount of money by wangling stuff. The only thing was the Beer Company one, because they were tight-fisted, they insisted that I paid extra money for postage and packaging. And there's a story behind that too. So the Beer52 box was 65 quid, included the P&P, no hassle, no problems at all. Ordered it in November and it came late November, so it was cool. Beer Company, they charged me extra for postage and packing, and it took 10 days to arrive, and I paid for next day delivery. So my advice, if you're even considering the Beer Company, do not go for next day delivery, because it just didn't happen. And they were blaming their delivery company for it. It's like absolutely crazy. So, although I ordered it in November, the Beer Company box did not arrive until the 3rd or 4th of December. So, basically, I missed the Advent start. I caught up on the beers, and you probably saw that. If you haven't, why not subscribe to the channel? Look back through my previous history. You can see all the reviews that I've did for both of these boxes. But yeah, paying extra money, and it was like 5 quid for delivery, for next day delivery, and then it took 10 days to come. Sorry, but that takes the piss. So instant 2 negative points for Beer Company. Number 1 is that it was ridiculously expensive, double the price if you paid full price, and then you had to add on postage and packaging, which did not come when they said it would. Some people I know didn't get their box like for a week. So I think some people it was 2 weeks before they got their box. So Beer Company, not all that they're cracked up to be. So the actual box itself, this is a plus for Beer Company because it looked like a tree. It really did look good. However, looks can be deceiving because the box itself was held together with Velcro, which I thought was really bizarre. And you could not have the tree freestanding because it was so wobbly, especially when it was full of beer, it would have just fallen over. On the other side of that, the Beer52 box was really plain. It was just a box that had separations in it for each of the beers, but it was a bigger box, so you could fit 330 cans, 440 cans. You could fit bottles in there too. It was good. One of the drawbacks from their box design was some of the holes weren't big enough. So to try and extricate the cans or the bottles, sometimes on the Beer52 was a bit difficult. And after 2 weeks, I think it was day 15, the box itself started kind of falling apart and bits were falling off, and one of the beers fell through into the space below. And obviously with an advent calendar, do you want days all in order, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, blah blah blah, or do you want them mixed up around the shop? You got to weigh that up really. Beer Company, they were all in order, and that kind of worked to some degree because you started at the top and then you worked down, so you weren't top heavy. So because the box was so wobbly, if there were a few left in the top section until the end, they would have definitely fallen over. The Beer52 box were a bit over the place. I think with a tiny bit more thought, you could still move the numbers around a little bit, but give a bit more strength to the overall box. Because I had mine so the numbers were facing outwards. And I think last year I had it so the numbers were vertical, which is probably the better way of doing it, to be honest. But then it's hard to get the bottles or the things, the cans, out of Beer52. Then we come on to the glass. Now this is another section where Beer Company had a better glass. They were both the sort of tulip style glasses, and by that I mean something like that, a tulip style glass. And this one isn't one of those, but this is a half pint one. The Beer Company one was larger, had more volume. You could, unless it was a really fizzy, foamy beer, and a lot of them were, because obviously they weren't in the fridge, they were in the box. But you could more or less guarantee that you'd fit a 330 milliliter can into that glass. Whereas the Beer52 one was a bit smaller, and the Beer52 one was exactly the same as the tasting glass I had last year. So I don't know if they did a job lot and kept the glasses from last year and recycled them, which is fair enough. But they were probably too small last year, and they're still too small this year. And if you had the larger can, of which the Beer52 did, they're definitely not fit into that bottle, into that glass. Sorry. So the Beer Company one, better glass. Then there were the beers themselves, and this would probably take up the most of this video. And this is where Beer Company let me down, I feel. If you look on their website, and it's still on there because I looked at it earlier on today, they advertised a special collaboration beer that was solely made for this advent calendar. You would get it on day one, you'd get some snacks, you'd get a pair of socks that were supposed to be Christmas socks. I didn't get any of that. I got two random small beers, which weren't bad, but they were not this special beer that they were really promoting. Everything. Oh, this is your special day one. Is a magic special beer. Didn't arrive. And then a bit later on in the month, I saw a thing from Beer Company. They sent me an email. Oh, did you like that beer? We've got loads left. So I sent them an email and I said, you didn't send me that beer. You sent me two beers and you didn't send me any snacks either. And the socks you sent me weren't Christmas socks. They were just random socks. So not necessarily a bad thing if you're like me and you like beer. Two smaller beers for the price of one big beer. But I was actually looking forward to a special Advent beer, which I never got. And I know they've got loads left because they were advertising that they had loads. So, question to you, Beer Company, why didn't you send me that beer? My Advent box was late as it was. You didn't send that beer. So that says to me that they weren't ready in time. So logistics wasn't very good on your part, I think. The other thing I should say is I had two beers that had substantial off flavors. One of them I think was a sort of acetaldehyde or sort of appley, sort of real bad off flavor, and the other one I think was a lemon, really sour. It wasn't supposed to be a sour beer, but it tasted like a sour barnyard. It was absolutely fucking awful. I only had two of those beers, and they were both in the Beer Company box. So quality control once again. And bear in mind, if you were paying £130 for this box, you're paying £5 each for these beers. So to have two obviously off flavoured beers, that's like you've taken £10 from my pocket. You have stolen £10 from me. So yeah, that was not good. That to be said, I was keeping track of the beers that I liked on each day and whether it was Beer52 or Beer Company. Now, so 67, there were a couple of days when there was no clear winner, okay, because they were both not that great. But 67%, so 2/3 was Beer52. They had the best beer of the day, and 28% of the time, the Beer Company won beer of the day. So for a product that's actually cheaper but has better beers, I think I would highly recommend the Beer52 over Beer Company, just because of the beers were better. Okay. The other thing to say was, in the Beer Company, there were a lot of session beers, session IPA, session lager, a lot of very, very light beers. Some of them were like under 4%. So 3.5% beers costing £5 in a 330 can. Well, that was the other thing. They were all small cans. There were no bottles at all in Beer Company, and there were no large cans of beer. They were all small cans, and they were £5 each, which is just ridiculous in my opinion. Beer52, much better range of beers, some strong ones, big cans, small cans, bottles. There were a couple of bottles in there. Much better beers, in my opinion. They tasted better. However, There was a downside to the Beer52 side of things, and that was, and this, I have to say, was probably the reason why the beer company won so many of the days. And it was because there were some double beers. 6. So the Beer52, so out of 24 beers, 6 of those beers were ones that I'd already had through the year as part of my subscription to Beer52. So if you, like me, have their monthly or 4-weekly, I should say, it's the 13 per year box sets, a quarter of the beers in the Christmas Advent box, a quarter of all of those beers were ones I'd already had. And I wouldn't make such a big deal out of this, but Beer52 actually say in their materials, you will never get the same beer twice. That's something they kind of pride themselves on. Well, a quarter of the beers in the Advent box were ones that I'd already had. Some of them were really good beers though, and I didn't mind per se. However, when you make the statement that you'll never have the same beer twice, and then and then you have a quarter of all the beers in the special Advent box has doubled up on ones you'd already had in the year. For me, it leaves a little bit of a sour taste in the mouth. There were other beers that I'd already had in the beer company box too. But I had a check of their propaganda, and they don't actually claim that you'll always get different beers. So, where does that leave us? If you have got loads of money and you like lighter beers and you don't mind paying a bit of extra, maybe look at the beer company. But I cannot, with hand on heart, fully recommend them for that Advent box. Didn't arrive on time. The box itself was rubbish. It was well overpriced at the RRP price. Like, it was double. It was ridiculous the amount that cost. And you had to pay extra for postage. 2 of the beers were off. Just, I cannot recommend that one. However, the Beer52 one, it did have its problems, like the box kind of fell apart. The actual design of the box was so that it was difficult to get the beers out through the hole. That wasn't so good. Obviously, they were doubled up, so if you've taken out a subscription, you might be a bit disappointed that some of the beers had been doubled up. But overall, Beer52 is still one that I would actually recommend. The beers you get are really good. Strong beers, light beers, dark beers, light beers, bigger cans, smaller cans. The only thing really is the glass is too small. That is the one thing. Well, that and having the doubled up beers, but that says more about me than it does about Beer52. But the one thing that would really improve is to give a slightly larger glass, and maybe a few snacks as well with the Beer52 Advent box. But I would say out of the two, and this is my own preference, Beer52 Advent box by far wins the battle of the 2 Advent boxes. I hope you liked watching me drinking 50 beers in under a month. Absolutely ridiculous amount of drinking that I did. But I really hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you've stuck with me for this review to see which of the Advent boxes was the best. For me, as I say, it's the Beer52 box. Why don't you let me know down below in the comments what Advent box did you have this year? Did it live up to your expectations or not? Next year we'll see. Might try to get something slightly different next year, because I've seen some other offerings and other people have reported some really, really good beers, but we'll see how we do next year. We see if I haven't died of alcoholic poisoning or something random like that. One of the ways you can do that is subscribe to Unclejona's channel. Click down below, you'll see all my upcoming beer reviews. But until then, I really, really wish everyone a really happy 2023 and let this year, or next year now, but it will be probably this year when you're watching this video, be full of lovely, lovely beers. Guys, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and we'll see you real soon for more beer reviews.